with the Advisory Plan Commission for the Town of Sheridan to order. First order of business, if you please rise. Pledge. United States of America. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a roll call, please.
Mike Keenholz,
Here.
Levi Schwab, Steve Fisher, Cy Devaney, Travis Dunn, Amy Kopke, Jeff Meister. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our previous meeting. Does everybody have a chance to review the meeting minutes from February 19th, 2026?
Make a motion to approve minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented for February 19th. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Are there any meeting announcements?
No, there are none.
All right, next on the agenda, because we have two public hearings tonight, I have to read the rules of procedure and conduct. The Sheridan Advisory Plan Commission is a seven-member appointed volunteer body required by Indiana law for all communities that have zoning. The Advisory Plan Commission's role tonight is to hear the case or cases presented and either make a recommendation or decision based on the type of petition. First, staff will present a report with a recommendation. Commission members may ask questions at this time or any time during the meeting. Next, the applicant will make a presentation. It is the applicant's responsibility to prove to the commission that all requirements are met. Commission members may ask questions of the applicant during or after the presentation. Then the commission president will open the public hearing, allowing the audience to speak. If you wish to speak, please sign up with your name and address on the sign-in sheet. There's one sheet per case being heard tonight. Comments must be pertinent to the request being heard, and all your remarks must be directed to the Plan Commission from the microphone. Comments made from the seats will not be recorded, and you may be asked to leave. Commission members may ask questions of the public. After everyone on the list has had a chance to speak, the president will then close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and the audience may no longer speak. Following the closing of the hearing, the applicant may then be given additional time to address any issues that have been raised during the public hearing. Finally, commission members may further discuss the application and may also ask further questions before the president calls for a motion, which may include conditions of approval or recommendation and/or long-term recorded conditions called commitments. That motion from an Advisory Plan Commission member shall be based on and shall reference compliance with the town's ordinance standards. Please conduct yourself with courtesy tonight at the Town of Sheridan's Advisory Plan Commission meeting. Thank you. Is there any presentation ahead of opening the public hearings?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing us to present this evening. My name is Alec Foreman. I'm one of the planners with HWC Engineering. Someone who you're probably all used to seeing up here, Adam Pieper, apologizes he can't be here this evening. Currently spring break, so he is out of the state with that. Also with me this evening is Corey Weitzel, the Director of Planning and Landscape Architecture for HWC as well. Our intent this evening is a little more abbreviated version of the presentation that we had last month in February at this meeting. Really, the intent tonight is to go over some of the edits and changes that have been made to the plan since that past meeting. Nothing major, but we just want to make sure that we get that out so you all can have a chance to see those and the commissioners as well. No. Like I said, pretty quick tonight, going through those comprehensive plan edits and then the draft thoroughfare plan edits, both that Mike alluded to. But just in case anyone is here for the first time this evening, I would like to just briefly go over what we have been doing over the past year now, a little over a year now. So we are here this evening. They're at the draft comprehensive plan and then draft a thoroughfare plan for Sheridan. So at a very high level, a comprehensive plan is a long-range guide for development, redevelopment, really any kind of community investment within Sheridan. It is really a document that needs to be used by elected and appointed officials, town staff, builders, developers, property owners, really anyone who is, thinking about making changes to land use, transportation, like utility companies, like all of that kind of goes into this plan. It's for a, future guidance on, how the town wants to grow and what we want to preserve as well in Sheridan. Per Indian law, and at a very minimum, the comprehensive plan has to have a statement of objectives for future development, statement of policy for land use development, for the development of public ways, public lands, and public utilities. Also, this is a prerequisite for a zoning ordinance. So have to have a comprehensive plan first before a community can then go and adopt a zoning ordinance. On the other side, a thoroughfare plan is that guiding document which establishes the goals, policies, and recommendations regarding the development of a safe, efficient, and balanced transportation system that fits all the needs of residents within Sheridan. It is not a traffic study that's intended to address those immediate traffic concerns. However, during this process, certainly through public engagement, a lot of those troublesome or challenging roads, intersections, and other areas, both vehicle and pedestrian related, were brought up and kind of have been mentioned and addressed in this. It identifies future roadway extensions, design standards, and establishes the right-of-way dimensions for both existing and for proposed streets. One of the critical parts of the thoroughfare plan is that it really lays the foundation for right-of-way dedication as part of the development review process. So in a case that a developer is coming to Sheridan, this kind of gives that foundation to say, well, okay, road's going here and we're going to need, extra on both sides for the sidewalks, for the trails, and for the, other public uses that, Sheridan wants to have us go in that as well. Also, and most importantly, this is helpful in securing funding for major roadway enhancements. Certainly this, not only the thoroughfare plan, but a comprehensive plan itself is a tool that is very useful in applying for grants, state and federal funding, and other funding sources. To briefly go over the process, like I said, last May is when we kind of had that kickoff for this project. Starting with the comprehensive plan and then working through the thoroughfare plan over the past months. Really, this is just to show that this was not something that happened overnight. It is not something that myself and Corey and Adam kind of huddled around a desk and did ourselves. It was really a process that we tried to get as much community engagement and input as possible, especially over that reach consensus, that 2 and 3 phase up there, between different pop-up materials to give out to residents, public workshops, online engagement, a series of stakeholder meetings, a steering committee that we have several members of here this evening that met multiple times throughout this process to not only provide input and feedback, but also just to make sure that we were on the right track, that what we heard from the residents and from businesses is a good representation of what Sheridan wants to become and what our future challenges and opportunities are. So throughout that process and engagement, like I said, just some quick highlights. We had 2 different community workshops with over 80 participants, an online survey that had over 200 responses. And in addition to that online survey, there was an interactive map that allowed people to go on, place little different features down, whether it be roads or trails or areas for preservation or for residential and things of that nature. We had 47 unique features. But with those features, if you would go on and see what someone else put down, you could like or dislike those. So we had over 1,000 likes on those features, just really showing the input that received on that website. 6 different stakeholder meetings with over 55 participants. We had the One Wish exercise that the town did themselves kind of before this process kicked off and in the early stages to really get that first big visioning exercise going. And then most recently, we had a Big Ideas open house that had over 50 participants in this room. And then a project website throughout the entire length of this process that had over 1,700 unique visitors. I'll say on that project website as well that the draft plans were uploaded to that website before last February's meeting. So in case anyone out here or any of your neighbors have not had a chance to look at those or have and want to provide comments, those are on the website. Just some of the things that we heard from these last few meetings that, maybe we'll go over tonight, some of those edits that were made. The Big Ideas open house, really what we wanted to explain for this is we had overwhelming agreement on the goals and objectives. We did have some comments on what to tweak here and there, but overall it was very positive for, the goals, both land use, housing, transportation, economic development that are within the plan. And then after that, a department's head meeting was held where, there's the mention of, with growth, there's going to be the need to expand staff capacity, that infrastructure maintenance is now a thing with a slightly larger footprint than Sheridan was a few years ago. And then also, expanding town facilities, not just the boring streets and utilities, but also the parks, the trails, some of those other public uses, getting them farther out to Sheridan now. And then last month at the public presentation, one of those, or two of the big items, changing the language referencing the reorganization from merger to reorganization, where it was pertinent, where it applied. And then also, which we'll go over, some of those edits based on Plan Commission feedback that we heard last time. So with that, any questions? All right. Easy enough. So for the comprehensive plan, that is just also in case anyone out there has not seen it yet, the comprehensive plan is organized into 12 different chapters. Executive summary, some intro, background, process, kind of a more detailed version of what I just quickly ran through, and then get into some of these subject chapters: land use, agriculture, housing, economic development, and then closes with focus area plans that target particular areas within Sheridan. It gives a little more detail into land use and design that allows Plan Commission and Council to have a little more control if things are proposed for those areas. And then an implementation chapter, what kind of goes into key priorities and next steps based on what's in those goals chapters. So for the comprehensive plan key edits, we don't want to spend too much time on these, but some of the big ones, we have the page numbers, which I think is in front of you for the comp plan ones, replaced all the occurrences of the term merger with reorganization where it applied, added what does this plan not do section, because, this isn't zoning. So if someone's property does have yellow or, an ag use, industrial use, commercial use on it now, that does not mean that that's what your property is. We got into typical gross density ranges for residential land use classifications, added 2 new pages that include growth management strategies and a map, added a paragraph related to future service needs and addressing those development impacts, some action items related to supporting future services and potential funding tools, and then added a little bit on fiscal sustainability and infrastructure capacity. And then 2 new pages in that implementation chapter, 4 priorities that were identified either with the steering committee, through that Big Ideas open house, or through other input we received from the public throughout the process. For the thoroughfare plan, I will also say, on that in the version that was sent out to you all this week, Amy, I just got your edits this morning, so they are in here. So some of that would be, adding a little more verbiage, a little wordsmithing to the introduction for widely community supported. And then also in the transportation section, under one of the goals where we address or identify some of those key and challenging intersections, adding 6 points in 236 to that as well. That was one that was pointed out as missing. Thoroughfare plan, little shorter in chapters. Really, it's just the same kind of introduction, executive summary, little existing conditions and analysis, and then right into the recommendations and then implementation as well. For the thoroughfare plan's key edits, added a paragraph talking about broader connectivity upfront in the executive summary, and then avoiding subdivisions with one entrance or exit. Also added up there a paragraph relating to federal funding eligibility. Added a county 1 mile grid to the key term section. Into the next chapters, added a relationship to the comprehensive plan subsection. Now, while these are two separate documents, and they kind of focus on different things, they still should be used in tandem for all these kind of decisions, whether it be a application for, you know, a zoning change, or whether it be that development interest or things like that. So while separate, still should be used by not only the people sitting up here, but residents, businesses, and everyone as well in those decisions. Added a how the future land use map informs the future thoroughfare map, just a little bit of better description on maybe why the thoroughfare plan looks like it does based on what we had in the future land use map. Added a new paragraph emphasizing the importance of right-of-way preservation, something strengthening the right-of-way dedication requirement, including and regarding the corridors that are transitioning from rural to suburbans. So some of that, you know, in between now where, you know, I was just in, you know, Adams Township, and now I'm a little closer to the old Sheridan and the downtown. So what does that mean as far as right-of-way in my road? Added a developer's responsibilities for pedestrian facility subsection, expanded on the access management and growth areas, added neighborhood access and connectivity section, a little just description, just to make sure if, you know, something comes, it's not clear for the developer, not clear for a resident. We just wanted to make sure that some of these were expanded upon. So just a little more articulate. 2 pages were added. To create space, and then dividing the 1 mile grid section was added, and that was actually moved as well to add a new street grid diagram. Added a roadway jurisdiction section to better address NDOT coordination, impact from NDOT projects, and then potential relinquishment of their roads as well, if that were to occur in the future. So one of those cases where if NDOT, you know, wanted to give up one of the highways going through Sheridan now, what does that mean for the town? What's that process look like? And what are the steps that need to be taken? Amended the road impact fee map to reflect the most recent and final area boundary. And then finally amended the traffic study requirement section to better reference potential UDO amendments and other requirements that, you know, we might want to update later on in these ordinances. And I'll say another minor thing not on here, but a little consistency on the, you know, abbreviation for state road and just spelling it out throughout the entire document instead. So with that, ran through them quickly, but I really wanted to make sure we had any time for, you know, questions from the commissioners and then for the hearing as well.
Thank you. Any preliminary questions from the commissioners before I open it to the public comment? Okay, Mr. Nicely, do I need to open 2 distinct public comment sections, one for the thoroughfare plan, one for the comp?
For 30, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. I would like to at first open the thoroughfare plan, the public hearing for the thoroughfare plan relating to streets, roads, planning of transportation needs first. It is 6:49 p.m. Anybody would like to speak? Anybody on the list?
We do not have anyone on the list.
Anybody in the audience would like to speak about the thoroughfare plan specifically? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing at 6:50 p.m. on the thoroughfare plan. Next, the comp plan. We're going to open the public hearing on the comp plan portion of the meeting at 6:50 PM. Anybody on the list?
We do not have anyone.
Anybody in the audience? You all drove up here, put on your nice clothes, and nobody's going to come up and speak about this. We're going to close the public hearing at we're going to call it 51 PM. Discussion from the commission up here.
Which one do we want to discuss first?
Let's follow the order of the public hearing. Let's talk about the transportation plan first. Or the thoroughfare plan, excuse me.
Recommendation section, figure 4.5 transportation improvements map. That would be page 61. There are 10 bullets on state highways. We don't control state highways.
Correct. We discussed that in the meeting. Originally, there was some discussion of indicating those intersections in a different color or some other way to indicate that the town did not control what happened at those crossings, but we still felt it was important to identify the perceived need for improvements at those intersections.
We ought to add a different color to those and the legend that it's not regulated.
Yes, we could certainly change, yes, the color of those on.
7 areas on state road 38, and 3 areas on state road 47.
No, we can certainly do that. I think unfortunately, some of those, especially I think the 6 points and then, the one leaving town is some of the more talked about ones. So yes, certainly acknowledge that it is not Sheridan that's going to be pushing those forward, but like Mike said, certainly important to keep them.
Yeah, thinking about it from sitting up here and the people who are going to be in the audience, it would be a very useful distinction for us to be able to point to the responsibility there on that illustration.
That is a good catch because they talked about that during the steering.
So I missed one of the steering committee meetings, so. I don't think I have some much in this. I will say, unless it's enlarged greatly, and this is just being picky.
Mhm.
The text over photos is very.
I thought that too, but I wondered if the enhanced version, because we have the reduced version.
Yes, that does make a little bit of a difference. You think it's more, and certainly for photo quality, I will say, even the one that I printed the reduced one for
It messes with my eyes unless I really blow it up.
Yeah.
I can't read.
some of that, the white over the.
Oh, the white over the clouds
red.
is where it gets problematic for me.
Oh, I see on the section dividers.
Correct,
Got,
correct. On the
okay,
chapter
I'm on the same
headers,
page.
correct.
Gotcha.
That's right.
Okay, I see. I'm on the same page now.
Picture of Main Street, nice cloudy sky and then you can't read. Sorry, that's.
No, yeah. Nope.
People don't see this and.
And again, maybe it's fine on the regular version, but I'm guessing most people will see this through.
Yes, yeah, we need to darken that a little bit or do something to pop those chapter headers up. That is very doable.
I'll comment that I did a pretty extensive review of this when the drafts came out a couple of weeks ago, and I sent you guys a pretty long list of changes, and I reviewed again, and I appreciate the vast majority of those are incorporated, so I appreciate your consideration on those.
Certainly.
Any other comments up here from committee members or commission members about the thoroughfare plan? Okay. Let's shift the discussion to the comp plan.
I'll start with the compliment. I was on the steering committee. And something that I mentioned several times was that I did not think it was necessary to designate the area between Isley and Lamont north of 246 as single family residential. I met with staff today and she told me that some of that area is already zoned as residential, just some previous work. So it made sense, just in the eyes to go ahead and make the whole block, the whole area residential. I'm going to disagree just because most of the wording in the draft talks about keeping the development, the housing south of 246th Street. And most of the growth is happening from the Westville infiltration. And yes, the land right around the school is very attractive. I won't deny that. However, that land also is adjacent to the start of a very messy flooding situation. Most of you remember, if you're around, the Great Flood of 2011. I won't forget it because I was 2 weeks away from giving birth. And FEMA has the last map revision for this area from November 2011. No, in November 2014. That whole flood zone has not been updated since then. It's due for an update. I'm not quite sure when it's going to be. I actually tried contacting the person I used to talk to at FEMA to find out when it's going to be updated again. If you look at the flood map for FEMA, it looks beautiful, like all cut and dry. It looks like there's a great place to put houses. There's not.
Page 59 up on.
Yes.
Thank you.
But the proposed land use map, there's an occurrence on 59. I don't know that that's the cleanest version.
Which one are you looking at? Ian? What page?
59 is where I am.
Okay.
I have FEMA maps, but
So yes, the area you're referencing here in the east, correctly.
At one time prior to reorg, that yellow area just used to, this grade school, where one of the first is the Ringer property. There was a discussion with Arbor to build there. There's a PUD. And they have an approved PUD. Then the market kind of crashed on housing and they ended up selling out. At the time, we didn't have all of the real estate prior to real. So to get rezoned, there's a PUD. Now, reorg has happened. The thing was to stay south of 246. We had a petitioner come to this chamber and want to build a development on the west side of Lamont, north side of 246, and it was denied. And that was pushed reorg.
Okay.
And then at that time, I believe the property owner of the Ringer property mentioned that she would like to bring that back to and get rid of the R1 or R2. I don't think that she has approached to formalize that request. But the intent at the time, a year ago, she wanted to go back to ag. Had no interest in developing.
Development, sure.
So
Is that the full, at the top of your head size, that's the full kind of yellow there, east of
north
Italy
of
West,
246.
the whole kind of chunk
If you go to, if you go to Google Earth.
portion?
There's it's very evident, there's a field, the field section, it's not all the way over to Lamont. It's
Yeah.
about halfway over to Lamont.
Yeah.
You can pretty plainly see it, there's a big knot, there's a notch around an existing house in the PUD.
I was one of just a few people on the steering committee that is from the rural part of Sheridan. And so I feel a very intense pressure to represent not only the agricultural landowners, but also the people who have lived out there and live out there because we like it. When I drive home, I take 246th Street. As soon as I get past the middle school, it's an instant sigh of relief. I'm home, even though I'm not home. I see, it's the relief of being out in the country. I'm not saying that can never become houses. It very well could. This is not a zoning thing here. But I would like to see it go back to green and leave it open. There could be something else that may go there.
I don't think yellow being there is the spirit of the committee.
Now, are we thinking that for everything between, all yellow between Hinge and Lamont, or are they, their properties north of the school that are adjacent to the road that need to stay yellow?
The spirit was to leave
Okay.
north of 246 alone. Leave it as ag, in my opinion. I'm just one up here. But I will not vote for this comp plan if that is yellow.
I won't either. Furthermore, again, on paper, to any developer, this looks gorgeous. I know developers have their engineers who have to go and look at the maps and meet with FEMA and do all that. But later on, the people further downstream, we're going to pay for any development that goes in down here. I can tell you that. I know that 100%. We're very fortunate that Hamilton County bought some property adjacent to my property, actually, to help correct some of this. But they didn't buy it and spend the millions of dollars with the intention of rectifying further development.
I think it's misleading to developers to look at this and think that this is what we are shooting for.
Yes. Especially
And it's
since,
not.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
especially since, I think you told me that development occurs when there's already utilities next to it. There's no leapfrogging. So if there's utilities leading to an area, the next thing is you develop the next section. Well, once we start there, then we go on to the next adjacent property. We go north up to 261st Street and we just continue. And I don't think that's necessary, especially with all the available properties south of 236.
I'm not arguing for this to be included specifically. I do want to say that it's somebody who lacks the specific local context, we put together a fence framework that said we want these particular things. Aside from being north of 246, that property checks a lot of the boxes that we talked about. I understand that the context might not be right for going north of 246. I don't think that was included as maliciously or an intent to increase into farmland. I think it was just a different interpretation of some of the parameters that we put forward in the steering committee. I wouldn't have a problem removing that from the residential area.
Sure, and it's wonderful to think, oh, kids could walk to school.
Sure.
No, they can't. You can't even drive your vehicle to the elementary school without worrying about getting killed. Plus, the elementary school doesn't even allow children to walk to school. So kids are not walking to school from that neighborhood. Sorry.
No, I say,
Definitely.
no,
I do want to say though, that connectability of walking is something that we've built into this.
Yes.
So like if we're saying that now that we shouldn't consider that because the schools don't allow it, that changes a parameter that I feel like was one of the guiding thoughts that really went into shaping where the residential went on this map. So I'm not criticizing that position. I'm just saying that's new information to me that walkability to the school is not good or not a consideration that should go into where residential goes.
I speak for the elementary. I don't know about the middle school.
Sure.
They probably do.
Sure.
That's all.
So I've sat through a lot of these and I'm still confused. So your definition of mixed use,
mm-hmm.
describe to me what you can put inside of an equation. Cause I have a different vision maybe, and maybe you don't.
I would say
If you see something on a map that says mixed use, when you're a developer,
are you getting that? I'm a developer and I see vertical mixed use as is what that means. I think our intent for mixed use was, how do you replicate Main Street without, like, it's not gonna be the same vulnerabilities, but how can we replicate either small vertical or horizontal mixed use that makes Main Street successful? I can walk out of my house, walk 100 feet down, and maybe that's the coffee shop or whatever. I mean, that's a very cliche thing, but it's not, when I say mixed use for Sheridan, it isn't 4 stories over one that you see popping up next to interchanges and places like that. It is maybe 2 story, maybe there is a second floor residential, but it's more of I can have a house that's next to a small business, that's next to another house, that's next to a daycare. It allows for more of a mixing of uses that kind of not only complement what is in the town's core now, but also the mix of uses that, as a more rural member, you want to come into town and go to the cafe to eat and then be able to stop next door. And it's the smaller town feel, instead of growing up, I live in Fishers, I can say Fishers, growing up like what you're seeing in some of the larger cities now.
Westville,
Yeah.
4 stories with this
Mhm.
front garage in the middle.
And I'll drive home and go past some of them today. So no, and I think that was,
That's what I think.
yes,
Mixed use
yes.
shares a house.
and
And as a selfish reason, and I've tried to stay completely unbiased on this, and I don't think the steering committee did. I think the steering committee was made up of a lot of individuals that promoted their own agenda. But I'm gonna be that one. My residence is now mixed use on this map, and I'm trying to understand how that became mixed use.
And I think, Silas, one thing that we purposefully left out is apartments from those primary and secondary uses, just for that. In my head, yes, you're right. If I'm a developer coming in and you see apartments, then that leans more towards that 1/4, 1/3, something like that, where if I'm seeing like condominiums and townhomes mixed use, that's still privately owned residential that can be next to, the retail restaurants or whatever that want to be. So I think apartments was in there in one of those earlier drafts, but that was pulled, I think, specifically for that fear that someone's
So
going to see
in
that.
my particular situation, I have a veterinary clinic right here.
Mhm.
So resident,
Yep,
but mixed use.
Yep.
Is that all right?
yep. I think that I think that people hear mixed use and you do think of the Fishers or things where it's business on the bottom, 3 floors apartments above, but it can also be, like Silo says, house next to the business, just horizontally stretched out. So we're still maintaining that same scale. We're not putting up, 4 or 5 store building in the middle of Sheridan to disrupt things, but allows for the mixing and allowing for the uses that we think make a small town successful,
Right.
without losing the character that you're talking
And
about.
I read the description. I just wanted it on the record and to say
Mhm.
out loud that that's concerning for me.
We're in a really interesting situation. When I read through the whole document, just for the comprehensive plan, I highlighted every time rural characteristic or small town feel was mentioned. I went back and started counting, and it was mentioned over 50 times before I stopped counting. And something that really stuck with me was one of the main goals is preserving the small town feel and the agricultural community. And also, part of our growth is people moving here because they want the rural feeling while they commute to jobs. So we're really, it's not bad. It's just a really interesting thing to investigate how to maintain that while we embrace the growth.
Mhm. Because at the end of the day, we're Hamilton County, right? And it's,
We do not have to be
Mhm.
Westfield.
Mhm,
or
exactly.
Niceville. We get to be our own personalities.
If I
Exactly
could just step back to the questions about defining or clarifying the definition on mixed uses. The next step in this process is refining our UDO so that it implements this plan. And so that's where we can really hone in on those definitions and make sure that our vision for what mixed use looks like in Sheridan is what is eventually implemented.
Yeah, I think it's for, for years on that work for, everyone else, if someone does come buy Silas's house, wants to do something there. I think, in that description of uses may be mixed in single building or on one site or in close proximity, gives you all that little bit of leeway in saying, well, what we really mean is kind of that smaller site, the vet next to the residential house, not a massive thing. So I think that some of that language helps a little bit.
No, thank you, Bill. And our job to nitpick.
Yep, no, very much. You
I
can,
think you guys
that's what we're
did
here
a
for.
Tremendous job on this, and my comment earlier about individuals self-serving, I was glad to see that people, and I don't mean it maliciously,
Mhm.
people all have different interests.
Yep.
So, I mean, and that's their focus. And
Mhm.
I tried to be more broad when I attended those.
No, certainly this is something that at the end of the day, we want not only everyone out here, but, the voting members to be comfortable with what you're voting on, right? And if it is a single word that gets everyone tripped up, or the yellow on the map that gets everyone tripped up, let's talk about it and, get that figured out. So it is a document that represents what Sheridan wants to be.
Like a really easy one.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Page 1 of Teams, the only picture formatting. Issue, so a little bit of light. The pictures in this are actually really.
Oh. I got you. No,
That's very.
no, good call out. Thank you.
If you really want it, I think the page prior, maybe is where that light is supposed to go. Because there's a middle and more apart,
Oh, yeah, I see there. Yes, page got rearranged and that got dropped off.
Important.
It's all important.
And if you really want another one, 127 to 128, I think it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, when we added pages, if those got linked around.
Any other comments up here? Chief Stern, do you have anything for us?
I think it's a good plan. I think it's a good start. I think we're gonna be back here doing it a lot sooner again than we think. But I think it's a good guide to get us started. I'd like to see it a little bit more aggressive in some other areas, but I'm good with the plan.
Any other comments? We have two ordinances in front of us that are either looking for suggested changes or a motion to approve, disapprove.
Just for clarification, these are not ordinances, these are policy guides. These are policy documents
And if approved, it go to lunch council or.
for final adoption.
Or we can look at each other.
That's how I feel. First, Tuesday. What do you think, Amy?
Thinking through how to word it. Well, I propose for the comprehensive plan. That we push it through with the adjustment of turning the area between Hinesley and Lamont back to rural cities or agricultural,
Not yellow.
not yellow, green. As well as the updates that have been discussed here. And even discussed, were there any particular updates that need to be added to?
Well, we have the text over the photos, the photo issues.
Mhm.
Some of the photos could be better.
Oh, you mean for land, like the land use classification photos?
Yeah,
Or
there is
just
some better areas
in
to take
general?
pictures of.
I'm just glad it was a sunny day for that, because sometimes we'll get rain days and then everything looks a little gray and drab.
Speaking with council, attorney council, the suggestion was made to perhaps clean the motion so that it says motion to approve with updates as discussed during the discussion.
I make the motion that we approve the Sheridan Comprehensive Plan Adoption Draft March 13, 2026, with the updates as mentioned tonight.
Motion, do I have a second? Motion and a second to send favorable recommendation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. This is for the comprehensive plan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes. Is there a motion on the thoroughfare plan?
I move that we give a favorable recommendation, thoroughfare plan. Omitting any discussion that was made in this meeting to changes.
You make it a motion for approval, not recommendation.
Thought there was a recommendation. This still goes to council.
It does.
No. Make a motion to approve. As stated.
Motion and a second to approve the thoroughfare plan with the discussion here tonight. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional topics, discussion?
We do not have anything out.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Adjourn.
Thank you.
Why, you don't have any.